You are listening to the Keenan Vision Podcast, produced by Salesforce DevOps.net. This is episode 14, broadcast Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. Provar, Salesforce DevOps Top Products Demo with Vern. Let's commit. Hey, welcome everybody to the Keenan Vision Podcast. And today we're doing another one of our series in the Salesforce DevOps.net top products. And this week we have Provar on stage here with us. And we've got Sam Arroyo from Provar, who is the demo chief here. And he's going to start off by telling us a little bit about himself and what you're doing at Provar and how you help customers.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Vernon. It's great to be here. And my role at Provar is the one of us senior product manager. I've been with the company a bit over 1 year already, and I'm mostly focused on making sure that our test automation product supports all the Salesforce features so that we can test them properly. But I'm also the product manager for Provar Manager, which is a new product that we have, which is still in the testing ecosystem and the quality area, but it's focused more on the management and the life cycle from a point of view of a tester.
Great. And so how did you get into, what'd you do before Provar?
Before Provar, I worked on a SI in London. I'm still in London, but I've been working there for maybe 7-8 years.
Okay.
And my background is mostly development and product. So I was the CTO doing a bit of everything. But I wanted to focus more on products. I like building products. And this was a great opportunity for me.
Excellent. Yeah, and you're based in the UK, and Provar is mainly a UK company, although they certainly have a great North American presence too.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about Provar? I think I asked you to prepare just one or two slides before we kind of jump into a 20-minute demo here or so.
Yeah, so the name of the company is Provar, and we do a lot around testing and quality. And we have one main product, Provar Automation, which is what we're probably known for. Allows you to automate your tests, your test scripts. And it's very intuitive. You don't need to really code anything. It's just drag and drop, click here, click there to create your functioning tests. But we have a new product called Provar Manager, and that one is a Salesforce native product, which allows you to manage the whole testing lifecycle, beginning to end, and is more horizontally, whereas Provar Automation is more, let's say, vertical and deep into what it does.
Okay. So Provar is more the Provar product that you install on your computer and that you use to test your Salesforce development and deployment activities. That is the main product that everybody uses to do regression testing and to do things like that when you are developing an application, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Test Manager lets you kind of integrate those activities into more of a cohesive management environment.
Yes, so with Provar Automation, you're doing mostly the actual implementation of the test scripts. We call them like that, the test cases. But a lot happens before you get to that stage. So with Provar Manager, you can focus on the planning aspect and the design aspect before you get to building the test cases. And then it takes it over from there on the part of analytics. So it covers the whole life cycle and is a great complement to Provar Automation.
Okay, great. So what are you going to show us today?
Sure. So I have just 2 or 3 slides. I'll go through them quite quickly. And it's a very brief introduction to Provar Manager. So Provar Manager is not just another test management tool. And if you're used to the world of test management, you probably know of a few tools that usually sit on top of Jira. But ours is more focused on the Salesforce ecosystem. One of the main differences is that we are not just another generic test management tool. Even though you can use it for any system, we provide certain capabilities that are very unique to the folks that work with Salesforce testing. And we use different guiding principles. So the three guiding principles are flexibility. We created a tool that everyone can use, but also can change, and you can adapt it to the way that your team works. It's something that you might not find with your current test management tool if you're using any, like people are still using spreadsheets. So this is a great way of making a jump into a more serious way of managing your tests. Interoperability means connecting to other apps. So one of the great things about Provar Manager is that you can use it as a quality hub, and we will see that later. And you can connect it to any other tool that has to do with quality. And then you can use Provar Manager as your space where you can have a 360 view of quality across your organization. And finally, actionability, which is related to analytics. So how do we get insights and information that we can action from all the testing that we're doing? The second one is Quality Hub. And sorry, I have an icon there. I just changed this. I'm updating this slide every often with new tools that we integrate with or that we want to integrate with. But in this circle that we have here, we have sort of a life cycle where you analyze, you learn, you plan, design, build. We're very used to this sort of life cycle. And
thank goodness you didn't use the figure 8. I hate that.
No, yeah. And we are not looking at testing from the point of view of DevOps. We're looking at it from the point of view of quality. So our starting point is not DevOps. For DevOps folks, testing is just maybe another phase, but for quality folks, testing is everything. And it should happen everywhere, at every point. So that's why we're trying to also educate people, use Provar Manager to get a quality sense of things. So if we start with Learn, then you probably are using business intelligence tools like Panayo, Elements.Cloud. Maybe you're not using anything, but also you're using release management tools like Jira and Azure DevOps. That's what we found most of our customers use. And you want to connect Provar Manager to those because that's where your user stories are, and you want to relate your test cases to user stories, and you want to see what user stories have test cases, which don't, things like that.
Right.
And you go into planning, then you create your test plans. You can define your resources, identify risks. You go into designing your test cases, group them into test suites. Then you go into building. And to build, you actually implement the test cases. You create the test steps for it. You may want to take screenshots. If it's a manual test case, then probably you take screenshots so that the people executing the test case, going through it, knows where to click. For things like that, you obviously can use Provar automation to implement your test case, but you may be using other tools. You can be using Robot Framework or other tools. And Provar Manager is not exclusive to Provar automation. You can be using any sort of tool out there. The purpose is, well, that's great. Just use another tool, but bring the test results into Provar Manager so that you can analyze and manage those. If we then move on to execution, you could schedule your executions. You can see the results. You can raise defects and push them back into Jira, for example. And here we support not only manual testing, but Apex unit tests, Provar tests. You could be using another tool that exports test results into JUnit format or TestNG. You can use Selenium. You may be triggering things in Lambda. So the opportunities are endless here. And you can use this as your command and control center for all your testing. During the deploy phase is where you can plug Provar Manager into maybe your native tools like Flossum, Cobado, or DevOps Center, that's very easy because you're in the same platform and you can get a great view from your DevOps point of view, what is happening in relation to QA. And it also enables you to do much more intelligent testing, because if you know that your test cases are related to particular metadata, like for example, you have a test case that goes on account and the account name. Then if you see that there is a package being deployed from A to B that is changing that metadata, then you can say, oh, I just want to test or run the test cases related to that. I want to run my whole regression test suite. So you can be much more precise on the set of test cases you want to run. And you can only do that if you're connected to your DevOps tool.
Right, if you know everything.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, what do you do with the data that you're storing? Well, you have the test results. You can get information about performance. You can know how quick your tests are running and how every test step is taken to run. You can see security and coverage. So this is also where we bring more to the table compared to just purely test management, because we allow you to connect to your Salesforce orgs and bring in, for example, your code coverage, because that is quality, isn't it? So you can, if you're running your test that's producing code coverage reports, you can bring those into Provar Manager and have an historical. And we will see that later.
So I just wanted to recap this for folks who are listening. So what we've got here, so the Quality Hub, and this is what Provar Test Manager is all about, right? Is that you take all these things like you're integrating application lifecycle management, the idea about how to manage and plan and design your whole deployment environment. Really, it's a business system. It's not just a technical system. It's the thing you're using to implement your business. So you got to really have that perspective on there. And then you start integrating in all kinds of data that's coming in from activities that we use to do the CI process, to build code ready for deployment and test it, and then to run scans on it, SAST, static application testing, and things like that. And then you got to, once it's ready to deploy, you're going to deploy that thing. And then after that, you've got kind of like an observability phase where you're able to, as far as this deployment cycle activity is concerned, you're able to then kind of analyze it. Mm-hmm. And Provar Test Manager is like the hub of all that stuff.
Exactly. It allows you to do the whole life cycle just from one tool.
Good. Okay. I'm ready for the demo now.
And just finally, it sits on the Salesforce platform. Some people don't understand that. Maybe they're used to other tools, but every tool has to sit on a particular platform. And obviously, we're used to Salesforce, and we really value everything that the platform brings, because it brings you analytics, which are much more powerful than what you have in Jira. Automation. Mm-hmm. Imagine what you can.
I think, Sam, you're bringing up an unheralded point about these DevOps platforms right now, is that it seems kind of obvious to the people selling and using them, but people learning about it, is that essentially what you're providing is another SaaS capability to manage your SaaS. And because you have that platform that you're talking about here with all these features, analytics, automation, personalization, builders, security, privacy, and integration, you can centralize your activities. So it's a much more efficient process. It's the natural benefit you get out of using Salesforce instead of a bunch of spreadsheets. It's the same kind of thing.
Exactly. Okay, so let me just stop presenting that and jump onto the actual tool.
Excellent.
It's not smoke and mirrors. The tool actually exists. So hopefully you can still see my screen. This is the
homepage. Got a dashboard here.
Yeah. So
or options.
Yeah. From here you can see the different categories. You can see test planning and design, where if we look at the life cycle again, you have your projects, your plans, your test suites, your release management projects coming from Jira, for example. Then you have anything related to execution, analysis, coverage, and code quality. So you have here a window into every aspect of quality. So
this kind of corresponds to that picture we were just looking at, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just show you, for example, very quickly how you can use it. You can define a test project, which if you're using Provar Automation, it will match with the project that you use for testing. And I'm using a new Office HR implementation as an example here. The test plan is where most of your information is around planning, and you can define it. You can define your objectives, definitions, acronyms, system overview, the scope of what you want to test, features, what environments are under testing, approach to certain things like what's your testing methodology, your testing tools you're going to use, what sort of testing types, how you're going to approach coverage, test data, how you're going to get the test data, for example. You can identify risks. You can define your testing procedures. You can schedule this. If, for example, if this is just purely about Apex testing, you could schedule this to run every day. So as you can see, there's on the left-hand side, there's a lot of information that you can enter in, and it can be a bit overwhelming for folks that are just adopting a test management tool.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Sam, that you look at this and it could be overwhelming, and I don't think you have to, if your needs you don't necessarily have to go to this level of detail, right? But I think the thing that for people who are watching is that what Provar is doing here is they're giving you a template for an extremely formal test environment. And that's going to be great if you're responsible for maintaining a critical system. Like if you're doing medical research, or if you're doing financial transactions, or you're doing something where, there's a lot of consequences for making a mistake, or there might be a government regulator looking over your shoulder. This template or level of detail is exactly what testing requires. So it's really great to see this becoming more available to people in those critical application areas.
Yeah. And so we give them this framework, but if you are much more light in your approach, then, as we said, one of the principles is flexibility. You just go and say, edit the page, and you just start removing things and add your own fields and change things from one place to another. You can use this. If you know Salesforce, you know that you can customize everything you see here. Okay, so we saw the test project, we saw the test plans. Then remember that one of the first things we do is integrate with Jira or with your release management tool. Here, we've integrated with Jira. You can import your projects from Jira. Let's see, that one works.
Live demo.
Ooh. So yeah, for example, this is my Jira instance. I have all my projects here, and you can import your projects.
Pick the one, cool.
I have that one. Once you have the project, you can import the issues and your epics. And then once you have your epics and your issues, then you can start defining, okay, I need to create these test cases against the user stories. And you start getting that sort of coverage.
Application Lifecycle Management is where it's at.
So now let's jump to, for example, one of these test cases. So you have a path here, you have a life cycle. You can create a draft test case at the beginning during the planning phase, just knowing that you have to create one, but not actually implement it yet. Then maybe you have an approval process in place. Your superior has to prove that your test case assumptions are correct. And then you implement it in Provar Automation, for example, and then it goes into active because it's part of a pipeline. Here you can define the test steps. If you're using manual testing, that's great for manual testers. You can add your screenshots, your descriptions on where to click.
So here we're looking at essentially Provar was used to create this, right?
I think this was probably, imported or uploaded from Provar Automation, but you can manually create this. If it is going to be a manual test case or test case to be done manually, you can just use this tool and you can edit here and create your own.
Because what we're looking at here is a list of actions that are done to perform a test case. So that's great. And I presume now that's just an object that we can, and we see its history over here and its performance, how long it takes to run.
Yeah, so from the test case, you can see where was it run on every environment and what was the result. And the test case, you can group it into different test suites. You can see all the executions, all the related defects is related to a particular issue in Jira. You can see metadata components related to it, and you can manually add those, or you can use Provar Automation to fill in this for you, and if it's covering any risk as well.
I mean, this really emphasizes the need. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking how much, if you have a big project, you absolutely need a tool like this to know what you're doing. It's got to be done. It's either you're doing it this way or you're doing it with spreadsheets.
Yeah, and the initial time that it takes you to maybe create this really pays off over time as you automate everything and you start making use of all the information in here.
Because you're really building a repertoire of these tests and so forth, a suite that you can access. Yeah.
So we saw the planning aspect, we saw the design of the test cases. Now let's jump onto the execution. So from the test plan, I can see the test cycles, which is the execution of a bunch of test cases. For example, this one, we know it was run against the QA environment. And we can see information about the browser, device model. This is actually a functional execution, so we have that information. And what tool was used, how long did it take to run, and what was the status of each one of the test case executions.
Now, these are test cases that could have been run on a desktop computer, and in some cases can be run through submitting it as a job, right?
Yeah, so it could be run on your desktop, or it could be on a pipeline or a server somewhere. If it was a functional test using a browser, it could have been Chrome headless, so you don't need the UI. But also you can use this for unit testing, for Apex unit tests. I actually think I have a project here I'm using for regression testing. And this one I created just to schedule it.
Looking at a new test plan here.
Yeah, so this is a new test plan. Let's say I'm not interested in Provar Manager because of test management. I just want to test more and test more often, which is one of the things we want to empower people to do.
Yep.
How beneficial is it if you run all your unit tests every day, so that when the deployment day comes, you know where you're at? Because you've probably heard many horror stories where people are trying to deploy to production and suddenly realize, oh, our unit tests are not passing in production, and we just noticed right now. So stop everything. We need to fix this. Everything gets delayed. Well, you wouldn't have that if you were testing and running your tests every day. So here I have my schedule where I run my Apex unit tests every day. You can connect Provar Manager to your sandbox, for example, and tell it to run every day. So for example, I have here a test cycle. Let me check one of those. I'm sure if I have an example right now. But yeah, the idea is from Provar Manager, you can schedule it. It will trigger the test to be run on your sandbox, bring in the test results, and then you can review that with reports.
Right. So that comes back to the hub idea, where all that information gets fed into a console where you can see what's going on.
Yeah, visibility is very important here. So we saw the execution of it. And now I'm just going to jump to the coverage and quality aspect.
So now we're drilling into your QA environment. record.
So yeah, as I said, Provar Manager is not just for Salesforce testing. You could use this for testing any platform, really. You just need to bring in the test results. So you can use it for SAP testing, whatever tool you're using for that, bring in the test results. But in this case, we have a special functionality for Salesforce. We can connect to your sandbox, and then from here, you can not only schedule your testing to run, but we can gather the test coverage. And you can see on a nice picture how your test coverage goes up. It won't go up like this is not real.
This is
will
a
go
demo.
up as you deploy the changes, yeah. But you can see, for example, if you have an outsourced team that is deploying things into production, and you can see that your test coverage dropped after they deployed, that is a red flag. So it's good to have an eye on it. And
you got to get that up to. It's not. Is it there yet? It's not there yet.
Yeah. So here you could have also thresholds. Like our minimum could be, obviously minimum is 75%, but you could have a higher up. So here you can check the test coverage. At the moment, we support Apex test coverage, but we're going to implement flow coverage, which is sort of a new thing in the Salesforce ecosystem. Now with people doing a more no-code deployments and changes with flows, for example, they can test their flows. So you could use Provar Manager to check that your flows are still doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes, a needed thing.
And then code quality. So as part of your deployment or your pipelines, you may be using PMD or other external tools to run a scan of your code to look for bad practices, security issues, things like that. It's great. You can have that on an external tool. If you're using PMD, you probably don't have that anywhere else, and you sort of lose that information. But it's great to see every day or every time you upload information to see how you're progressing, because in a way, people talk about this as technical debt. Some more important than other. Definitely, like security issues are more important than maybe documentation or code style. But here you can see if particular categories are going up, and that may be a risk because it's telling you.
That's where something like PMD or I noticed that you had Clayton on a list where they scan and look for like problems in when you're using SOQL within Apex. You can create what's known as SQL injection errors, and that can be detected by just looking at how you program the thing, and that's what these code scans are doing.
Yeah, tools like Clayton, Quality Cloud, Code Scan, they offer things on top of PMD. Some of them use PMD, some don't. They give you more insights, and they allow you to see if certain issues were actually changed and fixed. But the good thing of Provar Manager is you can bring that information in so that you can see it from just one place. If I have time, just wanted to show how it plugs into DevOps tool. So here I have installed Salesforce DevOps Center.
Ooh, okay.
And actually I have an app for it because, DevOps Center has their own UI. So we created an app to make that visible and usable for us. So these are the projects from DevOps Center. So I have my project still related to the
so this is your view of the metadata of DevOps Center.
Yeah, these are the records of DevOps Center, but instead of using their UI, this is using the standard Lightning experience. And I have my work items, environments, pipelines, and so on. The good thing is from my work item, I can relate it to test cases.
Excellent.
And I can see in terms of the Salesforce DevOps environments, I can see when was the last time that particular test case ran and what was the status of it. So at this
is
level,
kind of joining the tables, right, between Test Manager and DevOps Center.
Yeah, this first level of integration is just purely about visibility. From the DevOps point of view, bring me the information about the quality.
For the test aspect, so you're not quite doing metadata management with this, but kind of integrating with what DevOps Center is doing?
Yeah, so at the moment it's just visibility. Relate your test cases to your work items the same way that you would relate them to your user stories. And
is
then
that how you would work? Sorry, Sam. Is that how you would work with Elements.Cloud, perhaps?
So with Elements.Cloud, yeah, I think they have user stories. So you will also relate your test cases to their user stories.
Well, that's nifty. So you can do real application lifecycle management and business process management with Elements.Cloud. And then you can integrate testing at all kinds of different levels now with Test Manager and this DevOps Center integration, because that's how Elements.Cloud does deployments, essentially.
Yeah. And for us, also remember that we are thinking from a quality point of view. So for us, the integration with Elements.Cloud, which is not there yet, but it's in the works. For us, as we create a test case, we want to get access to the business intelligence, like why are we creating this test case? So from test case view, I want to bring in all those user journeys and the things and the acceptance criteria that is in Elements.Cloud. So you will have a view from your test case to bring in Elements.Cloud, that information, so you don't have to go back and forth from one tool to the other.
Excellent.
Good.
I think we got time for one more screen or comment.
Perfect. So obviously the last thing, analytics. Good thing I didn't forget about that. So we shipped the tool with 3 dashboards, but obviously people can create all sorts of reports and dashboards using standard Salesforce. And let's just look at execution and defects. From this one dashboard, you can see the state of quality in any of your environments. You can say, okay, I want to look at SIT. And it will load all the testing happening there, your pass rate by different types of testing, who ran those tests, what tool ran those tests, who owns those tests, how many defects are open, by priority and impact. So this is just an example of the powerful capabilities you have just in the platform with reports and dashboards. And I think this is a complete comprehensive view of what Provar Manager does and how it can be valuable for any company.
Wow. That was great. I think it really, I think it's needed, for some of these bigger projects. I'm sure there's a lot of interest for people to try to manage all that information that they're using and to have to coordinate and put together to know if your testing is even worth it or if it's working or how are you doing. So, and testing is so expensive too. I think that's one of the reluctancies that people have about diving into testing hard. And I think something like Provar Manager here is going to help you feel like you're spending your resources wisely and that you're making the right decisions on where to put your effort.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Sam, we are done for today. I want to thank you very, very much for being on the Keenan Vision Podcast and the Top Products Demo with Vern episode, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Keenan Vision Podcast. Please come visit the Salesforce DevOps.net website and sign up for email notifications of significant updates. Thanks to 10 Ton Chicken for the music, which is available on iTunes. And also be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review about how well we did on this podcast.